Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present to you about seaweed farming in Kenya. My name is Alex Kimadi Gabriel, a researcher at Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute in Kenya. Research interventions have been carried out, have been made in Kenya on seaweed cultivation by previous scientists. And according to previous information, it has been revealed that commercial cultivation in Kenya is potential, especially in the south coast of Kenya, where feasibility studies were done. The results of these studies guided NGOs and government agencies in supporting local communities to establish seaweed farms as a way of implementing the project. Kemfree, during the implementation of the cultivation project, played a role in supporting the commercial, in supporting the communities through establishment of seaweed nursery that was also used as a training ground or as a training tool on seaweed farming techniques and farming management protocols. That was very vital for the farmers to enhance and or to be able to increase their production with time. Through these skills and support, small farms were then initiated by the farmers, which were later scaled up to model farms using the fixed off-bottom culture technique. A brief on the sites and production cycle. Cultivation of seaweed in Kenya is usually guided by various stakeholders, especially Kemfree. And Kemfree actually established the sites. And during the implementation period, Kemfree played a role of guiding the farmers on the suitable areas for cultivation. And the culture technique that is adopted for seaweed farming is the modified off-bottom culture technique, where seaweed ropes are supported in water column by wooden pegs and polypropylene ropes. And seaweeds are grown for between 30 to 40 days. Once they are mature, that is after 30 to 40 days, all the seaweeds is harvested. A smaller portion of the harvest is used to restock the farms for the next farming cycle. And that, as you can see from that, those photographs, those are some of the activities that are used, that are carried out during the harvesting and restocking of the seaweed. After harvesting, seaweeds are actually dried on wooden racks that are constructed at the village, and the racks are actually under a shelter facility where seaweeds can grow, can dry by use of sun. After the seaweeds have dried for relatively short period of time, that is between 3 to 5 days, but this actually depends on the weather condition. Once they are dried, because the farmers usually, each particular farmer normally dry his or her own seaweeds. Therefore, after the seaweeds are dry, the farmer then weighs the seaweeds, the dry seaweeds, and the record is kept by the group, the self-help group secretary. And this information is very important, not only for the chemistry researchers, seaweed researchers who need this information, but it also guides the buyer on during the payment of the seaweeds. At Kibuyuni, where the seaweed drying facility is constructed, seaweeds are dried there, and as you can see in that picture, it usually looks very beautiful. And stakeholders who normally visit the site usually have an opportunity of seeing the seaweed being dried. And as you can see in that picture, the stakeholders from Mombasa and other areas, that is the county government of Kwale officers, Kemfree, and the FAO officers are viewing the seaweeds in the drying shelter. I think you can see how they are impressed by the nature of the seaweeds. So once the seaweeds have been dried and the weights have been taken by the secretary for each particular farmer, the dried seaweed is taken to another storage facility where they are built in sacks, ready to be transported transported for export. And as you can see, uh, the picture on the right is a lorry that is loaded with seaweeds in bales. That is at Kibuyuni seaweed farming village, and it is ready to be taken the seaweed is ready to be transported to Mombasa Kilindini port for export. The seaweed buyer is actually from Tanzania. The Seaweed Corporation of Tanzania is the only seaweed buyer at the moment for seaweed in along the entire South Coast region. What are some of the strategies that have been adopted in Kenya to enhance seaweed production? One, a collaborative framework was established between the seaweeds stakeholders, that is Kemfree, State Corporation, State Department of Fisheries, the beach management units, seaweed buyers, seaweed farmers, and Kwale government, county government. And these stakeholders had their roles. For example, Kemfree monitored production and provided technical solutions to grow the challenges of seaweeds that were encountered. The State Department of Fisheries provided daily extension services. The seaweed buyer, that is the Seaweed Corporation of Tanzania, assured farmers of ready market for their produce. The beach management units provided community farms, protection, and local conflict. Just to mention that the beach management units are fisheries organization strategy where different fishing artisanal fishermen form groups, and they are able to to be guided on various fishing methods that do not endanger the environment from which they benefit. And therefore, through the fisheries department, these beach management units have been able uh, to encompass, they have been able to encompass even the women. And these BMUs have been very, very important, especially when it comes to management of seaweed affairs. Because, for example, there are small issues that sometimes arise from the drying space of the seaweeds, the farming space, the sharing of common tools during the farming. So the leadership of the BMU has been instrumental in making sure that these farmers are able to work independently and with freedom without anybody infringing on the rights of the other. So the farmers formed self-help groups, which was quite important because it provided better coordination. The farmers became more organized, and of course, they were able to introduce a bit of competitiveness in terms of production, uh, because at the end of the day, it is the production that counts when it comes to revenue generation. So there was that kind of positive competition that somehow enhanced the production of seaweed in the South Coast. The Kwale County government improved the seaweed infrastructure. When I talk of improving seaweed infrastructure, I mean that it is the Kwale government that provided the funds for the construction of the seaweed drying facility and also the construction of a seaweed value addition facility that I will talk about later. Fine. Seaweed has been increasing progressively in the south coast of Kenya. And this is evidenced by the graph that you can see. From 2012, seaweed production has been increasing. And one of the reasons that uh, has led to this kind of increase in production is the increase in number of seaweed farmers along the coast, with many villages coming in. And this has been actually caused by the motivation of the other villages by Kibuyuni, which has been very enthusiastic from the beginning, very hardworking, and their economic impact resulting from seaweed farming has been demonstrated in very many areas, and which were kind of an evidence for other villagers to be attracted to seaweed farming. Biomass actually increased significantly in volume from 5 metric tons in 2012 to 43 in 2015. And recently in 2018, biomass increased to about 94 metric tons per year. This was actually a very significant production. Seaweed prices have been fluctuating between 15 and 30 shillings since seaweed cultivation started. But despite the low value of the price that farmers have always complained about, production has been resilient, and probably this because of the limited economic options available within the seaweed cultivation regions. In terms of revenue generation, the revenue from sale of dry seaweeds increased also progressively. As you can see, in 2015, the revenue was quite high, and in 2018, revenue was quite high, and this is probably because of the high production during those periods, and also the increase in number, which was also catapulted by the increase in number of seaweed farmers. And based on this revenue, you will believe with me that these are good indicators of an economically viable opportunity, which to me has a bright future. Other interventions that have been instituted to increase profitability of seaweed cultivation in Kenya include seaweed value addition. And the focus of seaweed value addition came in through the initiatives of the blue economy. The blue economy has been viewed as a priority area in Kenya because of its potential source of employment and national economic growth. And therefore, in 2016-2017, an integrated governance structure that brought together uh, uh, various state agencies that include KEMFRI, Kenya Industrial Research Development Institute, State Department of Fisheries, Kenya Bureau of Standards, Brand Kenya, Kenya Industrial Plant Property Rights, and Food and Agricultural Organization formed a Blue Economy Implementation Committee. And through this implementation committee, seaweed value addition was focused, and marketing of the product was the marketing of the product became an area of focus also to boost the farmers' profits. And what happened was that as a result of these ideas, an equipped value addition infrastructure was then established at Kibuyuni to jumpstart the value addition project. With the FAO vigorously training farmers on seaweed value addition techniques at Kibuyuni. You may wonder why Kibuyuni. This is because this is where significant amount of seaweed was being produced. And these farmers have been resilient. They have been very, very hardworking through since the inception of seaweed farming. The photograph that you can see there is a value addition facility constructed at Kibuyuni, and some of the equipment that have been installed for value addition of seaweed. And when I talk of value addition, I talk of seaweed shampoos, seaweed soaps, seaweed salads, juices, etc. As a result of this, the training and farmers being able to produce these seaweed products, farmers have gone ahead, and as far as exhibiting their products in national agricultural shows. And this has been a very important step in ensuring that the seaweed products are not only acceptable in the village, but they can also be attractive to the outsiders. That is they can be able to attract a larger market away from the village. What are some of the outputs of seaweed farming in Kenya? And I have a summary of these outputs. Number one, farmers have significantly gained knowledge on how to locally manufacture seaweed soaps, seaweed shampoos, seaweed juices, seaweed salads, which could attract local markets. Farmers have uh, experienced increased income because of the sale of dry seaweeds and sale of the value-added products. Also, emergence of other ancillary businesses within the villages. And generally, there is an ability of the many households to meet their basic needs. There has been a creation of employment opportunities for many women in the villages and even the youth. What we see is in seaweed farming areas is transformation of infrastructure and domestic economic development. This I mean there are emerging roads, modern dwellings being constructed, electricity installations in households, and communication networks has improved. As a result of the success story of seaweed farming in the South Coast, many communities in the neighboring counties, that is, counties in the north of Kenyan coast, have been motivated and they are wishing to emulate their counterparts in the South Coast in terms of seaweed farming. And this interest has been shown, uh, especially by community-based organization attending Kemfree, coming to seek assistance to start seaweed farming. However, seaweed farming as in Kenya has faced various challenges. And one of the major challenges is environmental changes, which is associated with uh, global warming, just to say. And this has been manifested in ISA's syndrome attack on Eucheumatoids, especially during the dry season, which is usually between uh, December and February, when air and water temperatures are quite high. The ISA syndrome has been has been associated with mass die-off of seaweeds during this period. And at the same time, the growth of Capophycus arborescens has completely uh, been a failure. And it is usually more adversely affected by the eyesight syndrome. Uh, all these challenges have led to great economic loss and inadequate seed stock for farmers to restock their farms during the conducive season. That is at the beginning of the good farming season. Number two, the deep water culture techniques that have been suggested to remedy ice syndrome, that is the laft system, tubular, modified techniques, are too expensive for many women farmers to apply, and also they also require uh, farmers with a bit of swimming ability, which usually lacks in most women. Remember, women are the majority farmers in all the areas that where seaweed is grown in Kenya. Uh, and we are talking of about 80% of the farming population is women. Another challenge is poor market accessibility. And this has been as a result of the business being monopolized uh, due to the fact that it is only one buyer available for, to buy the seaweeds in Kenya. And this monopoly has actually limited opportunity for the farmers to negotiate price of the produce. And also the prices have been fluctuating uh, irregularly, so making farmers not able to plan effectively for their revenue. And also that has also been caused by the delay in payment of the food supplies, the payment of the seaweed supply. Lack of seaweed aquaculture production with market beyond the village. This is because seaweed value added products are uncompetitive and the market still remains at the village level. There is limited space for seaweed cultivation and expansion, and this is due to lack of effective marine spatial plans to curb resource user conflicts. And as a result, you'll find that private developers sometimes claim for ownership of beaches where seaweed farming is practiced. And then the last challenge, and not the least, there is inadequate data on seaweed site suitability mapping and the capacity building. Uh, so you can remember the farmers in the North Coast are eagerly waiting for a time when they will be assisted to do seaweed farming, but this can only be done if there is a feasibility study being conducted in the North Coast of Kenya. Currently, we are lacking finances to do this from the government. So I would appeal to this forum, if there is any funding opportunity to enable these communities in the North Coast to realize their dreams, it is welcome. Some of the mitigation cultivation of mitigation of some of the mitigating aspects of seaweed cultivation challenges through research interventions have been done. And one of those has been in investigating of the best culture techniques that could be adopted for deep water cultivation in Kenya. And studies have been done on floating raft culture technique, the modified off bottom, and the results proved to be positive, but of course with the challenges. The growth rates were suitable for floating raft and modified off bottom, but for floating raft, uh, the farmers, especially the women, complain that they cannot be able to adopt it because of the expensive tools and for establishment of the deep water rafts. and because of their inability also to do this to swim. And the modified off bottom was suitable. It had good growth rates, but the structure for supporting the seaweed, especially we're talking about the long poles, were unstable and they could not resist the strong waves of the southeast monsoon. Probably if there is a way of making the the long poles stable in the water, this uh, farming technique could be very suitable in the deep water cultivation system. Another deep water cultivation system that has been studied is the tubular net culture technique. And in this technique also growth rate has been good, suitable, recommendable. But the plastic tubes that are used as the structure for supporting the seaweed, the structure device that is utilizes plastic tubes cannot support or cannot resist the strong ocean waves, especially during the southeast monsoon. And finally, and not the least, I'll give a summary of my recommendations. Uh, to obtain optimal benefits from seaweed farming in Kenya, initiatives to attract private investment should be encouraged for expansion of seaweed aquaculture area. Therefore, resources should be mobilized and dedicated to one, conducting seaweed site stability mapping in the north coast of Kenya, test planting of the commercial species, and capacity building. There should be improvement of seaweed farming technologies to occupy suitable areas in deep waters, diversification of seaweed application to make the industry more resilient to the impacts derived from the shifting demands by specific manufacturing industries should be encouraged and emphasized. And the ecological services of seaweed, such as climate change mitigation and adaptation, should be recognized, accounted for, and the credits given to the farmers. International collaboration should be enhanced between seaweed researchers so that information sharing on global seaweed development trends, challenges, and approaches to mitigation should be facilitated. And finally, local, regional, and international funding institutions should consider seaweed development projects as a priority among the listed beneficiaries of the fund. Thank you for listening to me.